I might get backlash for that last post. For context, Mohammed Yunus is a economist. He is now the interim leader of Bangladesh, and Sheikh Hasina was the authoritarian leader for the past 15 years who was forced to flee due to widespread student protests. And I'm not a fan of Sheikh Hasina and authoritarianism. I'm also not a fan of Mohammed Yunus. And I want to kind of clarify that position, but I want to walk you through how to learn more and do your own reading. And sometimes that stuff can be very confusing. For added context, I am Bangladeshi. My parents are Bangladeshi. I lived there from 2007 to 2012 when there was another caretaker government at that time. I was in high school at the time. I went on to get my master's in economics, and Mohammed Yunus is an economist, among other things. He's known as a banker to the poor. That's one of his books. He won the Nobel Prize in 2006. He's an economist, a banker, and an entrepreneur. All of that can be found on his Wikipedia, not very controversial. What can also be found in his Wikipedia is him being the champion of this concept of microcredit. He has a bank called Grameen Bank. So let us Google microfinance, microcredit controversies. Okay, well, that's not great, right? Critics say that it has not increased incomes but have driven poor households into debt traps, in some cases leading to suicide. Well, let's look at the first article and see what it has to say. Seems pretty legit. Stanford Social Innovation Review. And you kind of can read this entire article. I am literally citing all these sources and kind of walking you through what happens when you look into this stuff. Okay, so the vibe of this article is very positive. He had less vision. There's all these gains of 43% higher. Incomes were higher than comparable women in underserved villages in the 80s, by the way. Oh, and this is a 2022 article by Alex Counts. So here's where I kind of raise an eyebrow at this, because it talks about the criticism, right? The ongoing debate and the criticism. And it says, rather than focus on their efforts on how this effective but imperfect approach that was in process of being massively scaled up could be improved, many microfinance researchers turned their talents elsewhere. Sustained efforts were made to undermine the validity of past studies. And other members of the Academy chose to analyze a group of mostly second-rate microfinance organizations and applied a powerful but problematic research technique called randomized control trials to study them. Randomized controls trials have been popularized in the pharmaceutical industry to assess drug and vaccine safety and efficiency, and they were being increasingly used to study social development programs. Now, I'm not going to say there's no validity in criticizing randomized control trials, but I kind of want to look into whether or not it's something that's used in the field of economics. So this time I'm going to Bing it. Okay, so it seems like it's pretty widely used. Okay. It just seems like that other article made it seem like it's only applicable to pharmaceutical industries? Okay, what is a randomized control trial? Now, before I go on a tangent about randomized control trials and what they are, I kind of still want to stay on this Yunus thing, right? What's the deal? I'm going to go to BBC and just type in Yunus. Okay, world's banker to the poor. I read this entire article. Please do check it out. I want you to check out even more resources, but I want you to think about things as you read them. Okay. What is this microcredit, microfinance thing? His initiative reached out to people shunned by conventional banking systems, people so poor that they have no collateral to guarantee a loan should they be unable to pay it. Okay, cool. That kind of tracks with a lot of these things, even though it kind of goes on this tangent about how Sheikh Hasina didn't like him, etc., etc. But then we kind of see who wrote this article. Kind of, here's a reminder. This is the one about the backlash, right? But the writer is a founder of Grameen Foundation. Interesting. He's the founder of the Grameen Bank. Interesting. Now, unfortunately, this is a moment where I want you to kind of pause and think about a bank and what a bank is in terms of a business. The bank makes money off of giving loans and charging interest. But we just read that this bank is a good bank. It's a bank that gives money and doesn't really talk about the interest part. This was the BBC article, by the way. Doesn't talk about the interest part, but says it gives money to people who do not have collateral. What is collateral? Well, I can't just go into a bank and ask for a loan of $10,000 for no reason. Nobody can. You have to kind of prove that you have assets, whether that's a car, a house, or money in the bank, or, you know, give them an estimation of your income, right? So these are like poverty level people. It said beggars, you know, loans to beggars, like people who are just like on the edge. They don't have collateral. So something's not adding up. So then I find this Vox article. Microcredit was a hugely hyped solution. This is from 2019, whereas that BBC article was from 2011. What happened? Okay, let's read this. The original Grameen Bank model included a few core elements. The first is that after a loan for a micro enterprise is granted, repayment starts immediately with frequent regular payments over the course of a year or so. The second is group loans, in which a small group of borrowers from different households receive loans together, which puts pressure on the members to help each other repay. Finally, the model cuts overhead costs by having loan officers hold weekly meetings in villages to collect the disbursement and disperse payments, obviating the need for physical bank branches. Okay, so you are a poor villager, and you and all of your villager neighbors are in really horrible situations, and this bank is telling you entrepreneurship is the way out. The original BBC article, I had kind of picked this out. Obviously, go check if you need to. All human beings are born entrepreneurs. Okay, well, you and your village are like, cool. Like, we need money right now. Like, there's a drought, there's a flood, there's something. We need money. We're entrepreneurs, I guess, because these people are telling us we can, like, borrow money. And now you and all of your villager friends are in debt to a bank that normally would never, ever loan to you. Does this sound familiar? And does that original piece that leads to unaliving make sense a little bit right now? And there are many academic papers about the dangers of microcredit and the outcomes of microcredit and how a lot of the positive outcomes and bringing people out of poverty claims, extreme poverty being cut from 75% to 48%, a lot of those things have been debunked, right? And not all of those studies are about Grameen in particular. Some of them are about other banks that have practiced microcredit, but this man has popularized this economic theory of bringing people out of poverty. And by and large, sorry, I got worked up. By and large, this doesn't work, okay? And you can read your way through all those articles, and I want you to, but thinking of it from an intuitive place and considering on average institution offers loans at 20 to 30% and expect you to pay it back immediately. Guys, not everyone's an entrepreneur, and that is not an insult. Everyone doesn't have to be an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurship is inherently risky. And the poorest of the poor should not shoulder those risks when it comes to these institutions, i.e. banks. Is this the kind of person you want leading your country? A country full of a lot of underprivileged people